Hello everyone, and welcome today to my official tier list of the patch. This is a very early impression. I hope you guys will enjoy seeing what picks I actually value really highly right now, and what Pokemon I think are doing extremely well for their current status in the game. I played only a few scrims, about 20 games of the patch, so here's like my initial feelings based on like what I'm seeing every game and the general idea. Now, of course, we do understand that very soon EX Pokemon are going to be banned, and I'm just going to talk about that a little bit at the start, which is now. So when EX Pokemon are going to be banned, I guess I've already put Mewtwo's both in the ban tier, and I have Zacian in its new location, but we're going to go reveal that in a second, right? So you have to stay around for this. Now, I've noticed a lot of skipping on these videos. I understand you all want to get to the juicy bits and the points of the video. What are the best Pokemon? You need to listen to the explanations. I'm explaining why the Pokemon is good or why it isn't. And when I do that, you're losing a lot of the value of actually understanding, okay, this is in this place, why? Because when you understand the Pokemon, it can actually move up in a tier, and it can move down in a tier as well. And you're going to be better suited to playing against them in ranked. So, of course, without further ado, let's get onto it. Let's truly, finally get it done. What is the tier list? Okay, here it is. Boom, tier list. Alrighty, so right away we start off with the unreleased / banned Pokemon. Gyarados fitting there. It does look like it suffered a lot in a recent nerf in the PvE, so we're really going to have to see how that translates into the game. Can't say right now. Mewtwo X and Y, banned like they should be. Toddler tier Pokemon. Don't like them, don't ever like them, I hate them. Alright, okay, in the S tiers, right away, the first edition S tier is Metagross. This Pokemon is absurd. It is absurd, it is cheating. I don't really know if I could rank it lower. I want to rank it lower, but I feel like in the top lane in the jungle, this Pokemon has too much pressure, too much precedent. It is allowed to do things that other Pokemon are not allowed to do. It is allowed to tank 7 million abilities. It is allowed to have a support on it 24/7. It is allowed to be a solo menace. It has so much pressure in the game, and it can really open up any avenues for your team. Going for the second pick in the S tier, it's Glaceon. Now, I mean, when we talk about Glaceon, we talk about objective rip, we talk about percentage health damage, we talk about a clear counter to Clefable, which is something that hasn't been discussed much, but you'll see Clefable is in a lot of games, very good support. Glaceon is literally like the kryptonite of that Pokemon. You just attack the Clefable, and when they all go and group around, they get smashed by the Spears. Spears is definitely the build that is S tier. Icy Wind maybe only A tier, but Spears is so good right now. The auto attack damage and the rip, it has decent shred and has percentage health damage. Very good for killing tanks, which are some of the best Pokemon in the game. It also has so many ways to escape the nifty speedsters, which are getting harder and harder to play. So going into that, right, that we know that the nifty speedster is getting harder and harder to play. There's two that are on top. We're going to talk about one right now, and that's Leafeon. Leafeon, I mean, the king of secures. You cannot really do anything about Leafeon securing objectives or securing farm. It is very hard to deal with. It is nifty, it is nimble, it has a great Unite move, it has a great early game, and it scales excellently into the game. It has the one-shot capability on some of the stronger characters in the format, which is right now the squishier backline damage. You want to have those in your team, but you can't when Leafeon is terrorizing the game. It has so much pacing, it's able to be everywhere and anywhere at once. Its combos are amazing with the amount of damage it can deal, with the utility and skill of use. Guys, a character is broken when it's easier to play. If the Pokemon is easy to play, it's going to be more broken than not, because it's going to be accessible to all types of players. And that's why I've ranked it into the S tier. Leafeon, just so broken. Now, second speedster, I do think it's a little bit worse than Leafeon right now. Zoroark. When Umbreon, Slowbro, and Clefable are not in the game, maybe even Mimikyu, Zoroark is like the king of kings, the god of gods. This Pokemon has the worst 1v9 potential out of any Pokemon in the game right now, even more than Metagross. However, it needs so much support, so much reliance, and I think in the end of the day, it's just too hard to play to the highest level. You need to think about a lot of mechanics when you're playing about Zoroark, and not a lot about the game speed, the game state, and actually like achieving your goals. And when you're thinking of these things, you're going to lose some things behind. I would love to put Zoroark as the best Pokemon in the game, and I do think that in some lights and in some ways, Zoroark ascends pretty much every other Pokemon in every capacity. But as of right now, with the difficulty to play it and actually executing the ideas in the game, it can only be in the S tier and a little bit below Leafeon. I do like it a lot. As I said, you have percentage damage, you have a strong early game, you get out of the jungle and you're strong, you have a decent lane phase in the top lane. It's not terrible, right? You have all these advantages, your attack damage, which is very beneficial. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But you just generally have a really good time. The strongest Pokemon in the game do sort of, they're strong because they work against you. When you look at everything else in this tier, it sort of can do okay against Zoroark. Zoroark is the bench standard, and you're gonna see, like, you know, a lot of your games, if you do not have anything to match the bench standard of Zoroark runs through lobbies, makes it absolutely unplayable. So, of course, coming in next is Umbreon and Slowbro, and we're gonna talk about Umbreon first. Umbreon, the annoying character. Jesus, this character is a monster in the game right now. You have Shield Denial, one of the best abilities in the game, very slept on. You have trapping abilities with Mean Look that any Pokemon that doesn't have full heal is pretty much stunned for 3 seconds. Like, especially if you're like a character that doesn't have much mobility, it is really, really bad to get caught by this. It's too tanky, it's too versatile, it's able to play literally any way it wants and any way around its own team. It can jump in with the foul play move. Wish you probably don't want to ever run it. Snarl is a little bit too good, but Umbreon is just a menace. You can really be super flexible with it, and it's a very, very annoying pick to play. Slowbro. It's like the opposite. You look at all these characters, and when you think about it, Slowbro has the ability to defend anything else you want to play against these characters. One Slowbro, and for 3 seconds, someone is unable to press a single button. It can doom Comfy, it can doom pretty much anything in the game. It's got the single most best Unite, right? Like this Slowbro Unite is still so overpowered. They need to reduce the damage of it at the minimum. I think that's something that I would do to tune down Slowbro. But yeah, speaking more about Slowbro's strengths, it's tanky, it's got a good lane phase, it's got decent secure, it's very annoying in the middle game. Like Surf and Scald are both great builds for against melee physical characters and against ranged magic damage characters. The main thing Slowbro really struggles from is getting, like, you know, kited and putting into weird positions where you're getting constantly poked, but you don't need to play Slowbro like that. And I guess, like, that's a big part of understanding how Slowbro is so powerful. If you don't play Slowbro in the sense that you don't need to group up with your team, and if you're like more of a free agent, then Slowbro might become very, very dangerous. But yes, some thoughts, some thinkings. Now looking at, of course, there are 2 top lane submissions at the very end of the S tier list. Buzzwole and Blastoise. Buzzwole, everyone knows, probably the best laner in the game right now, like literally. And the main reason why is that you have some of the best damage in the game that comes from auto-attacking. You very, very rarely need to actually actively participate in a matchup. You auto-attack some farm, and then you auto-attack the enemy, and you're nearly always going to win the A-press trade. And if you don't win the A-press trade, just use your abilities and you'll kill them anyway. You have a half-shot ability in the little buzz thing, and then when you get Smackdown and Superpower, these moves are way too strong. Smackdown giving you a shield, 2-second stun basically on the target, and displacement, and basically the same thing on Superpower. It's too easy to use at a high level, and because of its dominant laning phase and being able to manipulate the structure of the lane, it's just a little bit too good in the top lane. You can cause a lot of snowball leads, and it's a large reason why I think Leafeon has snuck up here, because Leafeon is something that can secure against it, and earlier, and continually secure against it. Like, you know, you don't want to engage a Buzzwole, and I think that's part of the reason why the Buzzwole matchup is very difficult for a lot of players and a lot of characters. It's not really anything about anyone else. It's just the Buzzwole interacts with itself pretty much. It's so self-fulfilling. Auto attack, get your max stacks, and then you're winning these trades, and there's not really anything the opponent can do outside of have like some range threat on it. Now, talking about its anti-nemesis, it's Blastoise. Both of these characters go hand in hand and doing the exact opposite things. They both have extremely great lane phases, and they're both for very different reasons. While Buzzwole is like, you know, smacking you and destroying you down, Blastoise is like the opposite. Doesn't ever need to be in your face. It can be in your face if it wants to, but it doesn't need to be. If you play Blastoise like this range cringe that it can be, it is so annoying and frustrating. It controls the space of the game in top lane a lot by diversifying, like, you know, where the farm is going to be rather than, you know, moving it itself. It like manipulates how your reaction is. With the stun on its water gun at the start of the game, you pretty much can't deny level 5. And once it gets the Hydro Cannon, the double one, I don't know, it's really difficult to deal with. It's a very strong pump, and when you look at like being able to be a supportive top laner, it probably fits the best category in the game as it's the most supportive character. It's so great. It fulfills teams' fantasy of having AoE Unite moves. And I would say that Blastoise is probably the most impactful top laner in the sense of actually uniting a team to get more value out of group unites and group team fights. It just comes in line and it plugs into pretty much any team you can play. It does lots of damage. It has CC for days. You can do even more damage if you want. I don't always think it's the best build, Water Spout, but it is very good. Yeah, that's pretty much our S tiers. We're gonna go about the A tiers pretty quickly. Hoopa. a little bit of a decrease this time for Hoopa, mainly because I think a lot of the supports are on an even plane, and even though Hoopa has some unique advantages over other ones, it's hard to utilize and realize in the game, especially with the new nerfs. So Hoopa, a little bit on A tier. I think you can definitely be better if you're a better Hoopa, but if you're not, I don't think it's a character that instantly wins the game. Clefable, it's like the opposite of Hoopa. It's super easy to utilize, like almost the full capacity of Clefable. To play Clefable perfectly, that's a whole different question. But to utilize Clefable to a level where a regular Hoopa was just playing, it's a lot easier to get there. And when you get there, Clefable becomes very annoying. You know, looking at the top lane, the S tier lineup, like it's healing all these Pokemon a lot. It's making it all very strong. It's got a decent top lane. Secure is okay. It passes the bar check. Zacian, wow. Going down to A tier, huh? Pretty rough for the big dog in blue. The big dog in blue suffers from this nerf a lot. The critical strike chance and auto attack damage nerf is significant because 20 auto attack damage and a critical strike of 0 at level 1 does mean that you are actually luck based. You're almost like Absol. Almost. Sadly, Absol is easier to play and probably easier to execute in its general idea, but yes. Unfortunately for Zacian, losing critical strike like that much as well, it was very punishing in this recent patch. And I feel like Zacian, it is still very good, especially if you've actually mastered Zacian and understand what you want to do with Zacian. You're probably going to do better than if you haven't played Zacian. But at the same time, it's also still pretty easy to play. It's still pretty easy, still self-explanatory, still rips objectives, still does everything Zacian wants to do, and it's still too annoying to play in the game. You can play it in jungle, you can play it in top, you can even play it in bot lane. Do definitely think level 5 has gotten significantly worse, but not that bad. It's not that bad, guys. Really, Zacian still is eating well, just gotta be, not baited by Metal Claw. Metal Claw looks good, it isn't really a good move, even with the dash and auto attack speed. You can auto attack forever and ever. You need to actually be on top of the enemy, and if you cannot get on top of the enemy, especially Zacian already struggles with using abilities to get on top of someone, not ending them, and then dying instantly after, because Zacian isn't built like a rock. So yeah, that's my general thoughts, why it's been moved down from S tier. Mimikyu. This Pokemon is fantastic right now. It's Gengar on steroids. It's everything Gengar wants to be in terms of skill expression and ability, and it's just it's executed in a much smarter and more developed way. Gengar players should probably move to Mimikyu, but I think at the same time Gengar players are just belted. Yeah, Mimikyu resets, lots of damage, percentage health damage, good auto attack, very good spacing, can be played top, can be played jungle. Very nice level 5 gank, very good level 7, scales into the game, has a great Unite move. It's just a great character all around, very good. More of a speedster than an all-rounder. Eldegoss. The reason, I guess, these are unordered, but Eldegoss just another S tier, supporter. They're all the supporters I've put have been in A tier, mainly because of the utility they're providing to the game right now. I think support is very flexible in the sense that you have a character like Eldegoss, its range, it's similar to Hoopa, but a little bit more aggressive with a little bit of a drawback in rotation and healing and whatnot. So that's how I'd like to think about it. Comfy. Well, if you look at the top 3 characters, or look at Metagross, Leafeon, and Zoroark, well, they're all good. Well, Comfy's good. They're all characters that Comfy excels to be on. Comfy wants to be on Bruisers, it wants to be on Divers. It doesn't like to be on range characters, and when range characters are meta, Comfy's a little bit worse. So, when these Divers and unkillable monsters are in meta, well then Comfy's better. And that's just why Comfy ends up in the A tier. I feel it's too useful, too good, too many, ease of access to abilities. Meowscarada in the A tier. I feel like Meowscarada is on the verge of success. This character was buffed in the right way. It's not overpowered. It's annoying, but it's not overpowered. It's good. It has its balances. It has its weeks of checks and counters. I feel like Meowscarada really suffers into tanky teams, but at the same time, I think the Rengar build is really underrated. That's just the Jump Knight slash. We're going to see more of it. A lot of people like Flower Trick and Unite Move and technology, but this, it's good. I just think the Jump build is better. If it's used more, maybe we could probably put it up a tier. But just like with Zoroark, all the checks and counters are in the best tier, and that makes it very hard to play. Inteleon, auto play character. You sniper, you big auto attack, you auto aim. Auto aim, not as good as more. Probably don't take that. But sniper, that's pretty much auto aim. Just aim in front of you, and someone will run into you and get one shot. Pokemon's actually busted. Laning phase is so nice. You don't really get too much sweat on you, and on top of that, your range is extremely overpowered, and if you look at the characters that are good, range is really good into them. Oh, I mean, like, you know, it's just poking capabilities are just amazing. Overall, it ends up just as A tier. I can't list it as an S tier, which is strange because I want to, but I feel like its other competitors in the bottom lane are very evenly matched for many different reasons. Dragapult into the jungle. If you're going to play against all tanks, you want to take Dragapult, especially if they have no way to get onto you without like eject button. And if you take eject button and not greedy, this is the easiest game Dragapult you'll play in your whole life. Just hold the A button, click Unite moves, pretty easy. Go invisible every so often. Beep, 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 beep. You get 10 kills, the game's over. It's really, really, really hard to come back from like a bad Dragapult. Mew. This character is extremely skill-based. If you are not a good Mew, it goes down to B, so C tier. If you're a good Mew, maybe S, but I would say top of A. Because the reason Mew is so good is its ability to comprehend situations and actualize them in the game. If you see that you need to surf and you know if you need to engage with your team, you can do that. You see that you need to play back and poke, you can do that. If you need to execute and secure objectives, you can do that. Mew is the most versatile and flexible character in the game in this reason, and at most of the time, it is like unmatched in that capability. Sadly, there are other Pokemon that exist that are in S tier that do what Mew wants to do a little bit better, and because Mew is a jack of all trades, it's not really a master of any. And even though it was really, really good at one point with its secure and long range poke, it's sort of been matched by other Pokemon that aren't like, it's just not that kind of game anymore. Because you want to play poke, but then there's Clefable. And then Clefable really can annoy you. Hoopa can really annoy you. Like, you're not finding real value, and then eventually the enemy team just creeps in and just all into you. And yes, Mew actually does way better than Inteleon in this sense, but I think that to actually get to that level as Mew, there's a lot of difficulties. Urshifu Dark Form. I'd rank Urshifu Dark Form in the A tier. The reason being is that Urshifu Dark Form is having a really good time when you look at the characters in the game. Its main counter, probably Slowbro. Yeah, it's still, of course, awesome. But Urshifu Dark gets a free game against Glaceon, Leafeon, Zoroark. A lot of these other squishy speedsters or squishy ranges, they just get shredded by this thing. It has objective control as well, probably better than nearly anything in the game but Zacian. At the end of the day, you're winning when you play Urshifu Dark. It's a very nice character, has a lot of flexibility in the game. It's still really weak at level 5. Only reason I haven't ranked it S tier. I think it's a great character. If you can play it, you go play it. Sylveon, super power crept. I do not know how they buffed this character. Its Unite move was already good, and they give it a shorter cooldown. That's not bad. I don't know about these special tech nerfs. I've been playing against Sylveon a bit, and Mystical Fire feels somewhat like original Mystical Fire, where back in 2021, this thing would jump around, shred you, and you couldn't fight back. And it feels a bit like that, but I think that's just, you know, maybe my perception of being in games where you have so many different threats in the game that you sort of have to pay too much attention to them. So, can't give it S tier yet, but I do think Sylveon is a very good addition. It was good buffs, character's very relevant now, if it was a little bit not relevant before. Blissey, for the same reason as all the other supports, it's a bit more unique and specialized in situations. Singular healing, singular focus, but of course single isn't bad when you look at the carries in the game. Blissey is still very nice, very strong, has its good benefits, better laning than most supports. Good character. A9. I rank A9 here, it's really strange. I really like A9 in terms of its flexibility in the game too. You can play to defend your team, you can play to stun enemies. Very, very flexible. You have a lot of damage, you have decent lane phase, you have a lot of kill pressure. It's really annoying for the premier Pokemon in this game to really deal like a lot of damage to you at one go. And when it's, you know, they're struggling, these speedsters struggling to dive A9, you don't want to dive A9. Diving A9 is like, I don't know, you don't want to do it. It's not a good idea. So definitely putting in the A tier because it's just super strong, all-rounded, nice pick overall, doesn't do bad at all. Gardevoir. I have Gardevoir in the end of A tier. Is it reflective of its current capabilities? Not really. I like that the Unite move is a faster charge. I think Gardevoir more often than not does have worse matchups, but if they do draft like all tanky lineups, Gardevoir eats well, it is really good, it has decent range, and generally should stay in safety for a majority of the game. So Gardevoir is just pretty good Pokemon all around. It's just better that they buffed their early game, and you know the Unite move. So Gardevoir doesn't mind it at all. I've moved Venusaur down to B tier. I really like Venusaur. I think it's a very good Pokemon. Ranged poke is nice in Pokemon Unite, but this Petal Dance build is okay in the right game, and it's bad in the wrong game. And then the same as Beam. It has no really mobility to itself outside of Pedal Dance, and that's when I think some of the problems come. Its alternatives, like Mew and Inteleon, are far superior. And when their alternatives are far superior, it's very problematic. I guess that's pretty much all I want to say on it. Its Unite move is still good, requires a lot of skill to aim. If you're a really good Venusaur, its patch is probably the same for you. If you're not a really good Venusaur, don't play Venusaur. Not good. Okay, Cinderace. The boss is nice. You're doing a lot more shred to tanks, but too bad that anything that does damage gets onto you, it one-shots you. It's actually going to be like the world's worst game. If you have 5 tanks protecting you, it's pretty good. But I guess in that sense, not always going to happen. Cinder's okay. Wigglytuff. I think Wigglytuff is very nice in the sense that it can defend this team a lot better now. It has a lot of buffs into Sing, and its Unite move already got buffed in a few patches ago. Did it change, like, you know, how Wigglytuff's going to play? Like, is Wigglytuff going to have a good game to Umbreon? No. And that is just the sole reason I have to put a B tier. Like, if there's no Umbreon in the game, maybe it's okay, but I think the other tanks like Slowbro, like Blastoise, just, like, they can do too much. Too much. And yes, while Wigglytuff is a direct counter to Blastoise, and even a little bit Slowbro, to get that direct counter, it means we have to have a very good game, and then for that direct counter to matter, it means that I have to have not enough team damage. That's all the time while one guy on your team can't deal any damage. Kind of hard. I like the Pokemon a lot though. I think it will see more play. Decidueye. Well, okay, it's the last sniper. Just like Venusaur, has very limited mobility. Attack damage is very nice. I like attack damage a lot more than special damage because we're seeing a lot of special damage. And I think special damage shred is nice and all, but there's going to be options and times where it's just not going to be that impactful in the game. Special damage can do a lot more in terms of shredding, but these attack damage and its crits can be just game ending. So I like a lot of attack damage for crit. It has crit, has attack damage. It's like it has the things to be successful, just sort of lacking the right game for it. And I think Dragonite fits right at that end of its own type of securing kind of character. Dragonite is like a worse version of Zacian, in the sense that it wants to secure things as well. It just is a bit more honed towards just only securing, and when you lack the fighting capability and you need to run Outrage and Dragon Dance, there's definitely going to be some problems with how you play that Pokemon. I like it a lot though. It's definitely slept on a bit. Maybe you can go up in tier if you're a good Dragonite. Trevenant, I think this Pokemon is absolutely absurd in Ping. It's unplayable against. If you're playing against a Trevenant and you're in Ping, this thing will bonk you around until you can't move. It's just actually crazy. When off ping, there's like definitely some clear weaknesses. It can struggle engaging, it can have other things, but it's quite good. It's definitely worth playing. It has a lot of fun in the game, but it's not the best Pokemon. Blaziken. A similar reason I would say to Tree. It's very fun, a lot of dashes, like bulky, deals a lot of damage, true damage. I heard they changed the Blaziken animation as well, but outside of this, I think where Blaziken struggles most in is the lane phase / jungle phase. Every other Pokemon I feel that plays those roles is going to have more impact at level 5. And when you don't have a level 5 impact, I can really see the Pokemon struggling. All the top laners have implemented and implied have level 5 impact. You don't have a level 5 impact, hard to put you in the game. Lapras Unite move nerf, we were talking about it. Unite move is still good, now it's finally nerfed. Huge difference? No, the Unite move still does the same damage, it's still really nice, but I mean, like, sadly, we're going to see a lot less Lapras, and I think that's just going to mean worse rotations from players overall. It's pretty depressing. Same thing for Dodrio Drill Peck getting nerfed. I mean, I'm glad. Dodrio has been too good at this game for too long, and I'm glad that it's getting touched on and focused on now. But at the same time, kind of unfortunate this Unite move gets nerfed. There's a lot of the skill expression in this Pokemon is still locked behind mechanics. If you're really good at Dodrio, it probably is a better tier. If you're really bad, don't touch it. It's not going to be worth your time anymore. It's not as good as what it's promising. Before in the past, if you hit all entire Drill Peck and an auto attack, you probably killed like 2 players. Now, probably not going to be exactly like that, and Unite move losing a lot of boosted auto attacks is going to give you less chances to learn how to use them. Chandelure. I think this Pokemon is super sleeper. It probably deserves A tier, but you know, alas, Overheat's still banned and competitive. And Flamethrower, as much as I really like it, if they all run onto you, or if the Pokemon I'm going to talk about a bit later is in the game, you cannot play. Delphox. Really good if they have all tanks. Like a lot of these Pokemon you'll see, like these Magic Mages, they're really good when there's a lot of tanks, and they're really bad when the game is like about the Speedsters, and that's why the perfect mix is Tank Shredder that can avoid Speedster. But yes, you're sort of Tank Shredder that can avoid Speedster, except that for the first 4 minutes of the game, you're probably useless, and even worse, a liability even. And you don't want to be a liability when you're jungler. And if you're a bot laner, being a liability just means your life is hell because you're playing against Inteleon, Mew, Sylveon. These kind of Pokemon really just like, take the mickey out of you and make it really hard to play Pokemon Unite. Cypher. It's pretty much a clone of Zoroark, but with a much higher skill cap to actualize to get the same value from a medium level Zoroark. If you're mediumly good at Zoroark, it's the same skill of being a very good Cypher, and it's very annoying. Every game that Zoroark is good in, Cypher is probably good in, and every game that Cypher, might struggle in, Zoroark probably doesn't struggle as much. Espeon. I feel like it's the most unloved EV right now. Does it need a touch-up? Probably not. We have free EVs in S tier. We may as well be playing EV Parade again. Nothing wrong with that, but I think Espeon gives a false sense of security to players. You feel like you're safer than you are. If they click full heal, you're gonna die, no matter what you do. Especially when you're Unite moves. So I really like Espeon in terms of the fact that it's offering a different style of bot lane attacker, like percentage damage but run away. But like that, it's just not good enough run away. Serena, super slept on, could be better. I see a lot of Koreans play Serena. It's kind of good there. I guess that's all I have to say about Serena. Combos, everything's the same. Super high skill cap. You need to understand Serena well to make it work. But if you don't understand Serena well, it's probably even worse. And if you do understand Serena well then why don't you go and learn another character? I'm joking. Jokes aside, yes, I think Serena, for the effort put in, doesn't give the same amount of value into the game as other Pokemon do. Machamp. I feel like if you're still playing Machamp, it's season 1. Yeah, look, I think Machamp is just not as good as any of the other Pokemon I've listed for top lane for many reasons. Everything they want to do, it does better. Everything they achieve, maybe it can't even do. It's just if you're once again, you're sort of like a jack of all trades. You have a good lane phase, and you have a good team fight, and you have good solo potential, but you're not really the best at that. And that means that when you get taken into deep territory with a Buzzwole that's the best solo fighter, you're gonna get farmed. And then when you get taken into territory with the best team fighters, which are Blastoise, you're gonna get farmed. It's the same thing. So while you're punching 2 people into a wall they ejected out of, your whole team got Surf, Hydro, Blastoise ult comboed, and it's just Jover. So that's not a great feeling. Oh, excuse me for the sneeze. Yeah, it's not a great feeling. Could be better. I would like to see some tune-ups. I don't know how you make it good without making it overpowered, but fair enough. You gotta have your time in the sun. Pikachu. I feel like this character is good for players who are very, if the mechanics are easier, they excel a lot because of their, fluidity. There's one player in particular that's coming to mind, but to me, the reason why this is B tier still is because its ease of access allows players to really actually think about Pokemon Unite. They make better plays when they're on this Pokemon. We're talking about different types of ganks, farming more efficiently, being a better player overall. But I do think Pikachu just doesn't do enough damage. All of its role comparisons do way too much damage in comparison to this. And as much as I'd love Pikachu to do more damage, I think any more damage would make it completely busted. So I feel Pikachu's perfectly balanced. It's a perfect place to be for a Pokemon which is an entry-level Pokemon that you can pick up and play, and you can do relatively well in the first go, because you're thinking about what I should do in Pokemon Unite rather than, what combo land do I have to do? There's still skill expression. You can do very nice, double ability placements. You can stun people out of their combos with the Volt Tackle, but at the end of the day, it's always going to be skill limited when your Unite move is not as impactful as other Pokemon's Unite moves. You click a circle around you that deals bolt damage. Could be better. It could be better. Zeraora. With the boss to Wild Charge, I don't see this Pokemon as a threat. what? It's just the worst play rough. That's just what it is. And Volt Charge, Discharge, Comfy, the Sweet Kiss is interesting, but as interesting as it is, I think you're probably better off playing Absol every game. If you're gonna do something like that, you're probably better off doing something that can pull them in. I don't know, it's a weird spot for Zera right now. Zera wants to exist in a meta where everything is tanky, and it's tanky as well, and it's not tanky. It's so squishy. And being squishy really sucks when you can't one-shot their whole team. So, as you can see, it's too committed. It doesn't want to have commitment with Volt Switch, but it has too much commitment. And now that they buffed the other moveset, it's just still the same thing. You have to full all-in commit, and you lock onto a tank and it's just Driver. It still has its moments. I do like Spark Wild Charge, it's definitely fun, but more often than not, the other moveset's still probably better, and it's still probably B tier. Talonflame. I really like Talonflame even after the buffs. It received the patch ago with Fly and Aerial Ace. It's cool. At the end of the day, Talonflame always plays the same way. It excels against a bunch of squishies. Maybe with all the EVs in the mix, it's probably a bit higher, but some of the Pokemon on the list right now, like Umbreon, it's just not possible to play into. There's nothing you can do. So Umbreon and Clef make this Pokemon really hard to play. Really unfortunate about that. Lucario. I would like to rate Lucario higher because of its skill cap, but yeah, it just needs too much to get too little. It's a lot of the case with a lot of these Pokemon right now. You need to do extremely well to get too little. Snorlax. Same sort of, like, I mean, I think the tanks are rated a bit lower because of how overwhelmingly oppressive the top tanks in the game are. The top 3 tanks in the game feel like gods among gods, and the rest of the tanks in the game sort of feel like memes. But like at the same time, Snorlax is still really good. It's still a great character. Yawn ability is great. Being able to just jump around, stun people, put them in walls. You have a lot of potential with Snorlax, but just as I said, you're sort of just a meat shield, and at the end of the day, against some of the better Pokemon, you actually have no chance. Glaceon farms you. And that's really, really bad, because if you're giving them a Pokemon that is just going to be able to really like hurt your team with, you're going to need huge heals, and then that's just baiting your team even more. So, Absol. Well, what do I think of Absol? This is entirely luck-based. If you don't crit in the first 3 minutes, this character is F tier. Like the worst character in the game. Some players are so lucky, they're just forward-facing critting at like 7 minutes in the game and one-shotting you. I don't think it deserves S tier, but it is one of the best, like just luck-based Pokemon. It lets you think and play the game in Pokemon Unite without disturbances, and that makes you a better player. If you can play Pokemon Unite without worrying about what's happening in the game, well, you know, like you're actually going to play better because you're going to think, oh, look, well, this is what I need to do to win. You know, I want to go on this guy, and when I go on this guy, I can go on this. Like, you can think about what's happening real time because you're just clicking one button and holding A. And every so often you see CC and Sucker Punch. I think the other moveset's okay as well. I definitely do like Absol a little bit too much. It probably does deserve C tier, but I'm a lucky player. So when I play Absol, I 4K crit in front of them, and it's just, I guess you get one shot. Counterplay. Crustle is like the antithesis of Absol. It's the thing that I said Chandelures makes unplayable. Crustle-Chandelure matchup is like Crustle always wins, and Crustle always wins against these ranged mages. Maybe Glaceon sort of struggles into, but everything else, it just runs with them, and they can't do anything. One X-Scissor, it's over for you. So, a bit unfortunate to play against Crustle. You don't want to match into it too often. It's very powerful Pokemon. It's definitely a little bit underrated though, because this is sort of hard to lane up with. If you want to go top lane, you're giving up a lot. If you want to go bot lane, you're giving up a lot. It can be nice, but yeah, there's games where nice is good, and there's the games where nice is bad. Okay, Mr. Mime. For one of the hardest to play Pokemon at the highest level, it's just so... It just doesn't feel rewarding. You can Fortnite wall someone in, and you can really feel like, oh wow, I'm doing nothing, because they just auto-attack you through it. Mr. Mime, it could be more rewarding, and if it was, it could be up there in the highest tiers. But right now, Mr. Mime feels like all this skill is required to play Pokemon with like minimal input, and it comes down to just hitting confusion then. Power Swap has some credibility, but I'd have to see a lot more of it before I felt, oh, okay, it's a strong A tier. Cramorant. I actually really like Cramorant right now. I think it's very underrated and could be used a lot more. One of the highest skill sets of dive and the jump, the push, the dash thing. But outside of that, I think Cramorant also has its own weaknesses, and its own weaknesses is it really struggles when you can just run at it and kill it. And when you can run on top of Cramorant and just burst them down, it makes a really difficult game for Cramorant. You really don't want to play Cramorant those type of games, and as you can see, Leafeon, Zoroark, Buzzwole, Blastoise, Metagross. They do not care that this guy exists. They run on top of him, you're dead. Garchomp. Well, in the first addition to the C tier is my lovely boy Garchomp, and as much as I'd love this Pokemon to be better, it just isn't. Like, everything about Garchomp that could be good is sort of like translated into all the different top laners. And I feel like when you have the best Garchomps, like there's going to be games where Garchomp's 1v5, and it actually does have games where it's probably the best Pokemon in the game. But a majority of the time that isn't the case. There's too much range, there's too much CC, there's too many obstacles for Garchomp to deal with to actually effectively play, and that's its biggest barrier. It doesn't have super early entry access to the game, and it doesn't scale until it's like getting these high levels. So A bit frustrating. It does have a very good late game team fight, have to be wary of that, but if it was just a bit better and a bit easier to rotate around the map with Garchomp, could be a better Pokemon. Greninja. Everything Greninja does, like literally half the Pokemon do better. I mean, like just play Mimikyu. If you like Greninja, play Mimikyu. It's the same thing except not ranged. And like it's the same thing but like 10 times better. Mimikyu is just way better than this Pokemon. And then if you want the auto attacks, just go play Dragapult. It's frustrating, but it's unfortunate for Greninja mains. I would love to see Greninja as in a better spot, but I feel a lot of the time now that Greninja is suffering. Even with Water Shuriken being buffed, I just don't see it ever as a viable moveset, and more often than not, you're going to be trolling. So, a bit unfortunate. Would like to see his Pokemon fixed to be tuned up a bit more in line with what's in the game, but I don't know, it is a super noob stomper at the same time. Goodrop. Well, I mean, like, look, you're just introducing Mamoswine 2. That's all I can say. Mamoswine crossed with Tyranitar, and Tyranitar is in D tier. Not good. Not good. Everything that's good about Goodra is sort of reverted to the fact that you're gonna suck in the early game if you're against a good player, and if you're gonna suck, well then you're gonna suck late game too. And then they're gonna pick late game characters, and you're gonna have a really, really bad time. It could be good. I just haven't seen it enough do... I haven't seen it do enough. I haven't seen it lift the weight it needs to, especially in a solo queue or even competitive setting. If you just want a tank, just go and draft the tank. Like, don't draft Goodra. You could draft Crustle and it's 10 times better. But that's just me. Personal take, of course. Aegislash. Once again, it's a character that suffers from the idea that for all this Omega Brain you've put in, the Metagross has clicked one move and done better than your entire moveset combined. It is super scary at level 7 though. It has a very, very big threat against squishies, but and particularly against these EVs, it can have some super cool matchups, but outside of that, it really can struggle. Not gonna get much value. Same thing with Azumarill. Azumarill, it's like a lower skill cap, like it's auto attacks and crits and stuff, but once again, like I love attack damage in the game, but there's a lot, too many things right now that really bother it without it being like, you know, one of the best Pokemon in the game. That's why Metagross and Zoroark are kings, and Azumarill's in C tier. It's just unable to translate this damage as easily as it wants to. Has all the damage, just can't get on the right targets. And if you can't get on the right targets in Pokemon Unite easily in a top tier game, you're gonna be doing nothing. Okay, Urshifu, literally the exact same regions, but it's even harder than Azumarill. Extremely hard to play, it could snowball, it could do amazing, but with this damage nerf, with this health nerf, it got gutted in the last patch, and I didn't realize it until I seen literally no Urshifus. I feel bad, like I really like this character in the sense that it should feel good because you're putting so much effort in, but it just doesn't return the results that it wants. And now, let's talk about Mamoswine. I feel like this character should be in a higher tier. I probably underrated it by putting it in C, but the main reason I put it in the C tier is to sort of think about why Mamos deservedly a C tier. Mamos deservedly a C tier is because its early game could be better, its mid game could be better, and its late game is almost abysmal if the enemy isn't needing to run into you. Mamoswine is only good when the opponents are all melee and gonna run into Mamoswine. And more importantly, if you're a character that can't run away from Mamoswine. If you have any sort of mobility, Mamoswine can feel terrible. If you're not playing against a ping player, Mamoswine feels terrible. And that's just sort of like hard. It is secretly good. It's not a bad character at all, but it's just there's too many difficulties, and I haven't been able to see players try and like cross the hump with that Mamoswine. I guess this is sort of where we draw into Charizard. What, we have a decent level 5, decent level 7. We don't get a Unite until 9, and then like our Unite is a single target, like AoE that people can run away from. That's when it can become problematic, you know, like we're running away from Unite, it can get cancelled, there's too many things that go wrong with it, a bit unfortunate. Talking about D tiers, D tier starts with D for Duraludon. This Pokemon cannot get up unless it just rips. There's games where I've seen Duraludon win 1v1s and stuff, and it can be funny, but I feel like a lot of the negatives that Duraludon experience are like permanent negatives. I cannot possibly see Duraludon beating Metagross. It's just like, Metagross counters what Duraludon is, it is him. Just the better version. They're both steel types. Hey look, maybe it could be the game alluding to something. Sableye. Macro geniuses, be alerted that all your macro is spent to score what, like 200 points maximum in the game, and then do like almost negative impact in Rayquaza unless you can hit everything on a player that doesn't have full heal. Why am I trying this hard? Just go play Clefable and heal the damn team. Yeah, I guess the sad point is that you can do all this macro play, you can put a lot of pressure, But at the end of the day, if the enemy team has strong Pokemon, they are just going, like, you know, like, as much as I always, like, say, play whatever Pokemon you like and enjoy yourself and have fun, you're just gonna get killed. And it's very frustrating. Very frustrating as a Sableye player. Like, if you ran up and you just get boom, like, just die. Why am I made of paper? But hey, look, like, I guess the developers have decided it's not Sableye's time yet. Maybe we'll see some more buffs and stuff in the future, but right now it's just really seeing this character. It struggles to translate what it wants to do into the game. Go score the points, but you're just still worthless. Scissor. I mean, like, you're everything that you don't want to be. You're tanky, but don't deal enough damage. It's good in solo queue, in the terms that, like, you could play it and have fun. Don't play Scissor if you're trying to win. It's just not gonna help. Like, you need to run these really obnoxious healers, you need to dive on squishy carries that don't know what your character does, and you need people to be baited into fighting for 7 minutes against you. The moment they disengage and start hitting you and running, the game feels unplayable. It's almost impossible to get into the backline, and more importantly than that, even if you do get on the backline, you're so easily peeled off because if you run full heal, you only have 1 second of immunity. So, yeah, like, it's a bit annoying. The characters in the game just beat it. Now, Tyranitar, do you want to play for 5 minutes or not? Don't pick Tyranitar if you don't want to play for the first 5 minutes of the game. Like, it's just actually, you're just writing off, you're signing a letter and saying, don't, let me not play. Greedent. It just sucks. It's very unfortunate. You're going to notice that the Greedent and Sableye are very similar to Pokemon. One goes invisible and one doesn't. So I assume Sableye is better, but I guess Greedent's better at tanking. It has its moments. If you're really good at Bullet Seed and Coven and stuff, you can have some good games, but majority of the time you're just going to end up struggling. It's just not worth the effort to play, to learn all the mechanics, and then more importantly, to macro out every game, and then you just lose because you, like, Glaceon targeted you once, and you literally got 100-0. Bit rough. Gengar. It's Mimikyu without anything that makes Mimikyu like what it is. We don't have percentage health damage. Like, we have the Execute on Dream Eater, but, like, come on. Like, the Dream Eater, like, Mimikyu's Dream Eater goes through, like, 7 walls in the map. Like, why would you play this when Mimikyu's in the game? It's the same Pokemon, but better. Your Unite move is so useless. You go invisible and let the opponent know. Like, I've lost my glasses to this one. They need to fix this Pokemon. I don't know how you fix it. Maybe you make Hex build fun and interesting, but it's probably just going to be obnoxious if it is. I don't know. Gengar is in a bad spot. It needs to be looked at with glasses and examined. Like, how do we make this Pokemon fun and playable in a way that isn't, like, terrible to play against? Because everything about it would be better if it did 20% the extra damage. And it would be broken. Or if it had an unstoppable. But it doesn't. And that's a bit unfortunate. Poor Gengar. Alright guys, and that concludes it. We talked about every single Pokemon in the game right now. I'm absolutely exhausted, so you better have smashed the like button, sub to the video, and of course leave a comment on what you think about what my meanie takes are on these Pokemon right now in the game. Now, this is a very early impressions tier list. This is probably going to change. I'm probably going to have to update it in, like, 10 days or something as the meta sort of settles in. But for right now, play the S tiers if you really want to win. Play the A tiers if you want to learn new Pokemon. Play the B tiers if you're having fun. Don't play the C and D tiers unless you really know what you're doing or you want to really learn this Pokemon because you love them. There's nothing wrong with that. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day. Cheerio and bye-bye.